Let's break it down. 1. Is it fair in a multicultural, multipolar society? In principle, a secular state in a multipolar society, like Indonesia with its rich ethnic and religious diversity, should ensure that public funds benefit all citizens equally, regardless of religion or ethnicity. When taxpayer money, coming from Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, Confucians, and secular citizens, is used to subsidize only one religion's pilgrimage, that raises questions of fairness and inclusivity. Now, 2, what does the subsidy cover? You're right, it's not just about flights and accommodation. Often the subsidy, called BIPO Biaya Perjalanan Ibadah Haji, includes administrative support through the Hajj Fund Management Agency, BPKH, medical checkups and services, pre-departure training and guides, government staff accompanying the pilgrims, even upgrades in accommodation or logistics during the Hajj journey. This can give the impression that the state prioritizes religious duties for Muslims with collective funds. 3. Arguments in defense of the subsidy. The government sees this as facilitating a constitutional right, since freedom of religion is protected, and Islam mandates Hajj for those who can afford it. It's sometimes seen as supporting national identity, given that Indonesia is the largest Muslim-majority country. The Hajj Fund is partially self-financed by interest generated from pilgrim deposits, though this doesn't cover everything, and taxpayer money is still used, especially for admin and diplomatic facilitation. 4. Counterpoint. Wouldn't true religious neutrality mean that either all religious groups get similar support for major pilgrimages events, e.g. Christian pilgrimages to the Vatican, Hindu ones to India, or no religious group is subsidized with state funds at all, and religious practices are funded privately? That's the tension. If Indonesia wants to call itself a multipolar or pluralistic society, perhaps it's time to rethink how it allocates state resources in a way that doesn't feel like favoritism, especially when other critical sectors like education, healthcare, or disaster relief still struggle for funding. And it's not fair.
This issue is deeply layered, touching on economic, cultural, and political dimensions. On one hand, the Hajj is a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for Muslims who often face significant financial hurdles in fulfilling it. Subsidies, therefore, can be seen as a way to ensure that all eligible citizens, regardless of their economic status, can participate in an important religious tradition. For many, this is not merely about travel or accommodation, it's about the fulfillment of a spiritual duty and the societal recognition of their faith and identity. On the other hand, when taxpayer money is pooled from a diverse society to subsidize a service that primarily benefits a single religious group, questions inevitably arise about fairness and inclusivity. In a multipolar society, such decisions need to navigate the delicate balance between supporting the majority's religious practices and ensuring that the concerns of minority groups are acknowledged.
This issue is deeply layered, touching on economic, cultural, and political dimensions. On one hand, the Hajj is a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for Muslims who often face significant financial hurdles in fulfilling it. Subsidies, therefore, can be seen as a way to ensure that all eligible citizens, regardless of their economic status, can participate in an important religious tradition. For many, this is not merely about travel or accommodation, it's about the fulfillment of a spiritual duty and the societal recognition of their faith and identity. On the other hand, when taxpayer money is pooled from a diverse society to subsidize a service that primarily benefits a single religious group, questions inevitably arise about fairness and inclusivity. In a multipolar society, such decisions need to navigate the delicate balance between supporting the majority's religious practices and ensuring that the concerns of minority groups are acknowledged. Critics argue that public funds should be allocated in a way that reflects the pluralistic nature of the society, potentially by broadening cultural or religious support to include other communities. This approach might not fully address the deeply personal nature of the Hajj for Muslims, yet it could help mitigate feelings of exclusion among non-Muslim taxpayers. The debate ultimately circles back to the principle of democratic decision-making. When most citizens share a common faith or cultural practice, their collective will can justify such subsidies. However, it also calls for transparency and dialogue about how public funds are distributed. Are there ways to design a subsidy program that aids all citizens, or at least provides avenues for other cultural or religious expressions to receive support as well? For instance, if a government can justify funding a widely observed national ritual within a majority community, perhaps it could also consider targeted initiatives that celebrate the country's diverse cultural or religious traditions, thereby reinforcing a more inclusive social contract. What might be even more intriguing is exploring alternative frameworks. For example, some countries implement opt-out mechanisms or dedicated funds for religious practices, allowing taxpayers who do not identify with the tradition to contribute to a general cultural development fund instead. Another practical approach could be to ensure that decremental adjustments in public spending for religious subsidies are balanced with investments in universally accessible social programs like education, health, or infrastructure. These perspectives invite us to think beyond a binary view of fairness. They encourage a more nuanced debate about how best to reflect society's pluralism while recognizing the deep cultural and religious significance of practices like the Hajj. How do you think policymakers could craft such a balanced approach, and what mechanisms might ensure that every segment of society feels both acknowledged and supported?
No, it's not fair. No, it's not fair. No, it's not fair.
This issue isn't one that neatly fits into a simple yes or no. However, if I must choose a binary answer from a strictly divisive perspective, I'd say no. It isn't entirely fair. To elaborate briefly, while the subsidy helps many Indonesian Muslims fulfill a vital religious duty, it uses funds from all taxpayers, even those who don't share the same obligation. In a truly multipolar society, many would argue that public spending should reflect the entire diversity of its population, rather than favoring one group. The fairness ultimately hinges on whether you view the practice as a necessary state support for fulfilling a religious mandate, or as an unfair allocation of collective resources. What are your thoughts on alternative funding models that might better balance these interests?